Welcome to Spark Science, where we explore stories of human curiosity. Today we're going to talk about kinesiology. If you don't know what that is, that's okay, stay with us. We will talk with martial arts expert Kru Brooke and Western Associate Professor of Biomechanics, Jun San Juan. Welcome everyone.
Thank you.
I'm here with my co-host Jordan Baker, improv entertainer and home inspector. How's it going?
Good.
Fellow Lindenite, which is also Brooke here, Kru Brooke, yes. And you have a Linden connection.
We're loosely affiliated.
Yeah. But we're here to talk about kinesiology, and before we get into really the details, let's just go over like some definitions. So, June, would you tell us a good definition of kinesiology, which is on your shirt there?
I know, it is, right? Kinesiology is the study of human motion, just to make it like simple. And there's different facet of it, and there's different specialization, and biomechanics is one of them. So we talked about exercise physiology, motor control. So there's different. We're looking at the whole body as an organism and how it would move and how we could prevent injury and help individuals.
So we're going to talk a lot about like common injuries. So I'm going to let Kru Brooke talk about. I'm going to say, what do you do, and what kind of common injuries come up a lot in your work?
Well, I'm the owner of a martial arts school in Bellingham. It's Pure Fitness Martial Arts, and what we teach is...
And it is where?
It is at 1801 Ellis Street, kitty corner from Keith Cox Audubon.
Yeah. And website?
PureFitnessMartialArts.com.
I just want to help out my friend. Let's plug this.
Thank you. So what we teach is Muay Thai, Thai boxing, and we also teach children and boot camps as well for people who are not interested in learning martial arts. They just want to work on strengthening their body and helping themselves get more fit. We teach kids, we teach adults, and I'm proud to say that my oldest student is 84 years old. I got a chance to do a private lesson with her and her husband, who's 73 today. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what are the common injuries that you see that we maybe we'll go and talk more about later, but just kind of like a preview? What are the most common injuries when you practice martial arts?
Well, when people first start training martial arts, their previous injuries come out in their training. So what we try to do is get people to move balanced in their body, their left and their right, both their legs, their upper and their lower, and trying to get everything to work together. And a lot of previous injuries surface in doing everyday activities. And some of the common injuries that we see with someone who's gotten more fit, they've become more strong, would be muscle pulls. Their nutrition is not necessarily up to snuff that week and they accidentally roll an ankle, or they hit a pad or a bag incorrectly and they strain their wrist.
So
those are pretty
common. Eat a Hot Pocket or something one day instead of a salad, you could roll an ankle?
Progressively over time, yes.
Hot Pockets.
Right. Thank you, Jordan. That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, whoa. Like rolling an ankle is associated with bad eating. Like.
So what, generally speaking, let's say you're eating really, really well, all of a sudden you don't drink enough water today. I had 6 cups of coffee. You know, you had a bad day at work. And then the next day you skip a meal because you didn't have time. Okay, the next day you did get your water and then you went out with your buddies and you had a couple beers after class. Okay, and then the next day you do something else and then boom, you roll your ankle. Oh man, it's bad luck. Not really. You kind of depleted your body over what it really needs to be able to do this extra physical activity. If you don't do martial arts, if you don't do sports, if you don't work out, if you have a sedentary life, you don't necessarily move that much, you can kind of get away with having a Hot Pocket, having a beer.
That's me.
You know, you can maintain that lifestyle. And then all of a sudden you say, I'm going to go do 50 round kicks. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know? Then your body's not going to be ready for that. So you need to kind of change how you eat a little bit to prepare yourself for that type of exertion and exercise.
I'm going to take rolling an ankle and I'm going to move it to Professor San Juan here, and so that's probably a common injury with running, which you talk about a lot. And so can you kind of let our listeners and viewers kind of know what you do at Western, and then also go into maybe running common injuries, because that's all kind of linked together.
Yeah. So I'm an associate professor in the Department of Health and Human Development. So we just changed our name. It used to be Physical Education, Health and Recreation. So last year or 2 years ago, so we changed our name to Health and Human Development, which is more
Sciencey.
representative of kind of what we teach in the university.
Yeah.
So in terms of what I do here, so I do research looking at injury prevention and rehab, looking at both upper extremity and lower extremity. And one of the main research I'm looking at is running-related injuries. Surprisingly, though, ankle sprains is not one of them.
Wow.
It's not a common running-related injury. You see more of ankle sprains when you're doing basketball. There's a lot of jumping and landing, volleyball. So those are more common injuries to those sports. With running, because especially with long-distance runners, you see more of like a stress fracture or an anterior knee pain. So that's kind of like more of the common injuries that we see with runners.
Yeah, my husband tries to run and he rolls his ankle like all the time though. So
I'm trying to teach him how to rerun.
yeah, he's not running. We're actually, so later on in the show, we're gonna, go and kind of put away this table and kind of you can show us some good form. But so maybe he doesn't have good form.
Yeah. In terms of in terms of ankle injuries, usually one of the most common thing that happens is they have instability of the ligaments. So if their ligaments are not stable, it's not going to provide stability to the joint, then there's going to be a lot of movement in different planes of the body, and that's why they get injured.
And maybe he should stop like being so aggressive towards like street signs and like bobbing and weaving.
He does not do that. Maybe.
He might.
Yeah, I'm not
You don't
there.
know. Do you watch him?
No, I don't, because I don't go out and run. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
There you go.
But so I don't know. I always like to start our show too with like, how did somebody get into the field that they're in? So I don't know who wants to go first. Talk about how did it happen?
Sure. Yeah. When I was in high school, I was an athlete. So I grew up in the Philippines, and for being a Filipino, my height, I'm tall. So I was playing center, and then I went to college and really didn't get any taller. So I was like, I think I'm going to give up being an athlete and then just continue on with doing some sports science or athletic training, and that's how it started. And then now it's just like continued into, I'm really enjoying this. I think I'm just going to get my PhD and try to teach and influence.
I just think I'll get my PhD.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the history behind it.
All right, so I know a little bit about your background, Brooke, but how did you get into martial arts specifically?
I loved watching martial arts movies, and Jean-Claude Van Damme was one of my favorite actors at the time. And,
you're like at the time.
At the time. He's still my favorite, actually, even though he's nearly 70 years old and just had a movie come out that I have seen. I was out with a friend walking around downtown, and I happened to see a martial arts school, and I stopped in there and I just poked my head in just for a second just to see what was going on. It was a very, very traditional martial arts school, very, very quiet. I think they were meditating at the time, and I kind of poked my head in, and then I left, and what I assume is a senior student had gotten the sensei's attention, and I was instantly intimidated. Very large Caucasian man, lots of chest hair, and said, "Come to my office," and I was like, "Okay." So I went in and I sat down, and he says, "Why'd you come in here?" And I said, I don't really know. And long story short, he intimidated me, put me in a joint lock, and said, "This is what we do, and it'll be good for you." And I said,
Like
"I'm out of here."
In your initial meeting, you're like, this is like...
He is sitting there, I'm sitting here, and he says, "This is what we do," and puts me in some gooseneck, and I said, "That hurts. I'm leaving." So I did, and kept walking down the street and kind of stopped at another place, and then I walked into Total Confidence Martial Arts, and another Sifu walked up to me and shook my hand, looked me in my eye and said, "What brings you in today?" And I said, "Well, I like kickboxing." And they said, "Well, that's great." And then I started doing classes there and lost a bunch of weight. My confidence went through the roof, and I ended up staying. A couple years later, they hired me as front desk. A couple years later, they hired me as an instructor. And then here we are 17 years later, and now I get a chance to operate and own my own school and give back to my community what was given to me.
Have you ever thought about going back to that first guy and putting him in a gooseneck? Like, ripping out some chest hair or something?
Do you remember me? No, I've never thought that ever.
Is that guy still around?
Yeah.
I think that their facility has moved, and that student that got up now owns his own school here in town. So he also teaches martial arts too, so I'm not sure where his sensei is, but I would never go back and say, "Look at me now."
Yeah.
Well, you don't even have to say, "Look at me now." Just blindside him.
Trying to tackle him. Yeah. "You did this to me."
Well, that's really awesome. I as a student of yours now, I totally respect how like awesome you are at kind of helping people with their confidence, but also helping people with not getting injured. Like when we're in class, you're like, hey, don't do that. Right. Don't do that. So I want to talk about maybe we can go around the table about like maybe some injury we all got from some event, and how do you avoid those injuries?
Okay.
So I don't know, Jordan, have you ever gotten an injury from anything athletic?
Anything athletic? No.
All accidental.
It was all mostly accidental.
Yeah.
One injury I had was in gym in 8th grade.
Okay, that's athletic.
And I was running across to the other side of the basketball, and instead of just stopping myself like this, I put my fists out like this to stop myself, and I broke right there. So I don't
I
know.
don't remember this. Did you have a cast?
Yeah, well, I had a splint. And it
Oh,
was,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
remember this at all. Oh, wow.
so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just want to talk about that?
I do want to talk about the idea of when you are doing martial arts and you hold your punches, like how do you hold your hands and what's like the appropriate way to hold it? I know like you putting your thumb here, like.
Just don't strike me.
Many
Yeah.
different martial arts will have a different way that they hold their hands based on if they're a hard style or a soft style.
Okay.
Muay Thai is a hard style. It's combat. There are weight classes. It's not necessarily something soft like Wing Chun, where it's based on structure. There's no weight classes in Wing Chun. It's primarily for self-defense only. A good way or a good rule of thumb in any kind of a martial art or any kind of striking is if you can make a full fist, and if you can't see your nails and you're not
Can't wait to
white
that.
knuckling,
You're not
then
white-knuckling,
then
okay.
you've got some structure.
Okay.
Anytime that you hold your fist super duper tight and then you contract all the muscles in your forearm, you create a lot of tension, and then upon impact you'll create more tension, and then something might release, meaning some kind of a tear
Splits.
or a pull or something like that. So you just want to make sure that your fist has form and that you're hitting with a strong contact surface.
I
And
don't think I'm doing it right.
you must hold your fingers like this. No, just kidding.
If you put your thumb
It's like a bear
inside,
claw.
If you put your thumb inside of your hand and
you'll
you
break your thumb, right?
well, it'll hurt a
feel
lot,
great.
Yeah.
and hopefully you won't hit anything that hard. You can't actually make a strong fist if you put your thumb inside. If you squeeze your own thumb right now, you'll feel some tension inside of one of your knuckles, and it's not very structurally sound. Anytime you put a finger in between
Another finger.
another finger, it's not going to be very sound. to
So
hit anything
fingers have to be
away.
outside.
So it's best if you can curl your fingers inside and take your thumb and cover your index and your middle finger for general boxing or Muay Thai purposes. If it were a soft style like Wing Chun, it would be different because you take a hard target like your hand and you hit something soft, like a throat or something like that.
Like a soft throat.
Yes, you cannot make this stronger.
I like how all your comments are like making Jordan just like
Yeah, I'm like,
aback just a little bit.
He can feel the power in his
I
hands.
don't know if I'm doing it right, but
So the science of what Kru Brooke is saying is all like, what do you have?
It's physics.
Like, it's
You can
physics,
answer
yeah.
this,
No, I
right?
can't.
Yes.
I'm like, this is a finger bone. I don't know anything about the human body.
See, I think that's the key with what we teach in our department is that the tie between physics, and that's biomechanics, physics and biology. And just the reason for that is you want to increase the surface area, right? So if you increase the surface area that you're hitting, then you're dissipating that force,
Right.
right?
That's true.
Because
huh?
pressure is equal
It's
to force
impulse.
over area.
Impulse. Yeah.
And then, so that's really important that you want to increase the surface area when you're hitting, so that you
Interesting.
could dissipate
and
the
take
force.
off your rings, right?
Yeah. Keep them on because it's going to be.
a little something extra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, June, is there an injury that you have had that your work has helped you kind of get through it?
Not currently though, but when I was in high school playing basketball, then ankle injury. Yeah. So I probably twisted my ankle a couple times or a few. And lately though, now probably I'm not just doing more
Maybe you're just
compared to
Superman.
before. Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, he's a lot smarter. Yeah. Don't eat
Maybe-
those hot pockets.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
don't eat a hot pocket. What about your injuries? Anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. So I, when I started, Kru Brooke's studio opened last May, and my left knee, like it just got worse and worse, and I couldn't hop on it anymore. There was like, we were talking about round kicks, and we have to do these round kicks very fast. It's kind of like the can. Like if anyone knows, no one under the age of like 30, like.
Is that the
Like dun 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 dun. Like it's basically, so this round kick is like like the can, and I
Right.
can't, and only do it on one side because my knee can't handle it if I do it on my kicking my right leg and bouncing on my left. It just doesn't work. And like for a month it was hurting and I couldn't do anything, and I don't know how to avoid that. I was twisting my knee a lot, I think. I don't know.
Some of the things that you can do to avoid those types of injuries are to make sure that you're actually pivoting when you're doing a kick.
Yeah, I don't do that.
This is actually leading
Stay planted.
this is leading into my injury.
Yeah.
Back, I had my second competition. I was fighting. We had a 160-pound weight class, and in that weight class, way back then, it was really hard to find girls in our fighting category because there weren't very many. So the girl I had to fight was 5'10", and I'm 5'0".
Yeah, she is not 5'10", listeners.
So
Watchers, yeah.
what we did is we went out to the ring and we got in the ring and felt it. It was super slick. It was wet, it was super soft, and so we thought, all right, we're gonna put resin down and you're gonna put your feet on that to make them sticky. And I made the worst mistake ever. I looked at her leg before I kicked it, and I committed 100%. Don't ever commit 100%. Don't look where you're gonna hit first and never plant. I did all of those things, and she moved her leg. And
on a sticky floor.
well, the ring was slick and my foot was totally planted. And so I planted, I went to go kick her leg and she moved it, and my entire body kept moving except for my planted leg, and I tore my ACL right there. The only show that my mom came to see, and that was it. And she was happy that it wasn't my very expensive braced up teeth. So one of the ways that you can prevent those types of injuries is making sure that your body is in proper alignment, that you never commit 100% when you're fighting somebody. But when you're working on a bag or you're doing this for fitness, one of the things that we teach is making sure that if you do not have the ability to pivot due to weakness in your calf or your ankle, that you actually place your foot in the position of already being pivoted before you kick, so we can prevent those things from happening in the future. Right. And then when people get tired, they lose their focus, they stop pivoting, we have to verbally remind them, you've got to pivot that foot, and get the least amount of friction as possible so that you don't have that shearing
And
against
that's what
your
was
tendons.
happening. I was twisting weird. And I haven't done it in the last 6 months.
Because now you know, knowing's half the battle.
You haven't kicked?
No. No, I have kicked.
Okay.
She hasn't made that mistake yet in the last 6 months.
So this is a great segue. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have this table be gone, and we're going to actually show these movements that we're talking about. And June, you can show us like proper running position and proper kind of alignment. Both of you can kind of help us with that.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Welcome back to Spark Science. We are talking about kinesiology with Professor and Dr. Jun San Juan and Kru Brooke. And they're going to show us some proper movements and proper alignment of body. Yeah, you're like, okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
I just had a hot pocket.
Yeah.
Feeling good.
So one thing I would like to talk about is like, you were talking about alignment of body. So like if you're running, how should your body be aligned? And then we'll talk about if you're like, let's say doing a round kick or something, how should your body be aligned? Because those are the two things we were talking about.
I think the most important thing, and this is what we see with runners, is alignment of the knee to the toes. So we kind of want it to be aligned. So when you are on that stance phase, or when you're accepting that weight, you want it to be aligned to your toes. And you see a lot of people that when they are running and they're on that stance phase, that their knee is going to be pointing in. And we kind of call that valgus joint position.
Is that bad?
Yeah, it is bad. So
It's got a name like valgus. It's not going to be
yeah,
good.
like what Brooke was saying earlier with ACL, that's the most common mechanism of injury, or the position of the knee when you have an ACL tear. And usually ACL tear is a non-contact injury, and that's when you have your knee in valgus. So if you're looking at that, that's in valgus.
Okay.
And that would predispose you into tearing your ligament on the knee, which is the anterior cruciate ligament, or the ACL. So you kind of want it to be more aligned to your toes. So when you're looking at the side, you don't want your knee to be ahead of your toes.
Oh.
Because now you're using a lot of your quadriceps muscle, which are the muscles on the front of your thigh. And so you want it to be, again, behind or even in line with the ankle if you can, so that you're
like
using
ankle straight up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're using more of your hip muscles, like your glute max, which is a really big muscle. So when you're trying to propel forward.
Yeah.
Mine's not at all.
Yeah.
So those are kind
Built
of like the
differently.
key mechanics that you look for, which is surprisingly those are controlled by the hip stability. So if your hip muscles are weak, then even if you're trying to put your form to be on that same plane, you can't maintain it because you're just going to go back to going in.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about, so is this linked to my problem when I was doing round kicks and was my knee inward too much, possibly?
For most people, our concern when we start teaching round kicks is making sure that they don't have a flat foot. Not only that their entire body turns together as a unit. You never want your upper body to go one way and your hips to go the other. You can give yourself some low back pain if you throw your arm down when you're going to do a round kick.
I do that.
Let's. There are some styles that do that on purpose, from training in the ocean. But we don't do that. Different styles of Thai boxing.
Kevin Costner
train
doing
in different
water
ways.
world.
Yeah.
Training,
But
shooing bees away.
one of the things that's really important is the setting up in your stance and making sure that you're aligned properly.
Yeah, let's see a round kick.
And-
Can you do one?
With all of this stuff on, I could probably
Just like
break
right
your
there,
mic.
right
So first things first is you want to make sure that your shoulders and your hips and your knees are all in a line. For some people, they end up being splayed out too much. They have kind of an obtuse stance.
Like frog
this
legs.
knee is popped out a little bit. And so what's most important is making sure that you have all of your hard parts pointing forward because it is a combat style, but also so that it's going to be easier for you to pivot. If my body is open this way and I want to kick this way, it's going to be really hard for my leg to travel, and it's going to be a lot of strain on my knee and a lot of strain on my oblique to try to bring all of that meat around.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So what we want to
Just
do
made
is
it
make sure
sound
that
really
everything
good.
is in alignment, not only for your punches, but also so that this is the direction that you're going to go when you run. This is the direction that you should go when you're fighting.
Okay.
So when you go to do a round kick, it's really, really important that you have some pivoting that's happening
On
on the
that
ball
front leg.
on your front leg, on the
Yeah.
ball of your foot, if you're going to be kicking with your back leg. The other thing is having balance, but maintaining a pivot in your ball of your foot and a pivot in your knee, and making sure that your whole body moves together as a unit. That's what's going to help save you from injury.
And I remember, June, we in previous talks we were talking about staying on your front of your foot when you're running. So can you tell me more about that, or tell our audience more about
So there's different ways of initial contact with running. So usually with running, when you're contacting, there's 3 different positions. So either you strike with your heel first, which is kind of like the heel strike, and then you could either do it mid-foot or you could do it forefoot striking. So those are the different initial contact patterns that we have for running. And there is a fad right now because of the Born to Run book that they're saying that it's better to run barefoot.
Yeah.
And when you're running barefoot, it's really hard to run barefoot when you're hitting your heel first. So that's why a lot of people are doing tippy-toe running, or you're going to be on your forefoot when you're running. The problem that we see with that, though, with forefoot running is just you're changing now. It's just a different mechanics, and if your body's not used to it, then you'll have different injuries based on that.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big proponent of it. If you are the faster you go, though, if you look at a 100-meter sprinter, they're going to be more on their toes, but they're only running for 100 meters, right?
That was going to be one of my questions.
Yep.
Is that for the 100 meters, they're going to be mostly on their toes, but for distance runners, do they typically, because they're going for such a long time, that they have to kind of preserve their body?
It depends on their
heel
mechanics,
first,
though.
or?
It depends on their mechanics. So when I was working physical therapy clinic, what we do is we don't change your pattern if that's not really causing the injury. So if you're a heel striker or that rear foot striker and that's not really causing the pain on your knee, then we're not going to change it, right? But if that is the cause, then we have to kind of look into, okay, maybe you want to be more of a midfoot or forefoot striker. For example, forefoot striker, since they're always on their tippy toes, then they're contracting their calves or their gastrocs, so there's going to be a lot of Achilles tendon pain. So if it's an Achilles tendon pain, then we have to change, or we have to shift that. Or maybe we have to strengthen those muscles. Maybe that's why it's happening. If it's a forefoot striker, maybe there's more shin splints or maybe more stress fracture on the tibia. Then we might have.
Where's the tibia?
So the tibia is on the shin. So the tibia is on the shin. In
front-
biomechanics,
the front
we call it the shank, which a lot of my students laugh at me when I say shank.
Is that because of previous butcher? Is that why?
Yeah, there you go. You know, the shank. Yeah.
Excellent.
So those are some of the reasons why we have to change the mechanics. But really, if it's not causing the injury, we don't have to change it. We have to really look for the ones that's causing the injury. Then that's where we're going to be focusing on.
So that's what you mean by you're not like really an advocate for this born to run thing because you think it's, or because of the issue of that it's individual and it's not like a blanket, like everyone should be running barefoot.
Yep, because when that started, you know, the five-toed shoes, very, very popular because of that, because now they're trying to force you, they're going to force you to do to be a 4-foot striker. But if you're not a 4-foot striker and then you start doing 10 miles on that five-toed shoes, then you're going to get injured. You know, you have to do it gradually and progressively.
Okay. All right. Was there any? We were talking about body alignment too. So, when you were talking about 4-foot striking and heel striking, is there something? I know it's bad to say there's a blanket statement, but is there something about like aligning your body and like how do you do that properly in any part, like running or any other kind of sport or martial arts?
I think Brooke kind of talked about it a little bit, that trying to make everything point to where you're going, right? And especially with pivoting, it's hard to pivot when you're pivoting on your heels or you're pivoting flat feet, right? So you have to be on the balls of your foot and you really need to face where you're going and your body needs to move an entire, or you're thinking of an entire movement of the body, not just one part of it. Right? Because if this moves and you're leaving this, and that's kind of what's happening with ACL is they're cutting and then when they move, they're moving and then this is also moving and then now the foot is left pointing there but you're going here. So there's a lot of stress on that ligament, the ACL, which is going to create that, or it's going to get injured.
That actually happened to me that way
That-
as well on my other ACL.
Yeah, because you're moving, right? And then now your foot's still there. You didn't pivot. So now there's going to be a lot of torsion on that knee joint. And of course, your ligaments are going to be the one that's going to tear up because of that.
So we've been talking a lot about like the bottom part of our bodies. Is there anything about the top part of our bodies, like arms and back and all that kind of stuff, that like common injuries that come up and stuff that we can kind of show better alignment? I mean, I'm at the computer all the time, right? So I'm like,
We see it a lot in class. People have shoulder injuries,
Yeah.
upper neck, headaches, migraines, and we are stuck like this.
this,
Or we're this, or we're doing this. And so you get a lot of people with really tight chests. And so their chest becomes very tight and it kind of pulls everything forward.
Right.
And then as far as martial arts, then we ask them to use their arms. Well, their shoulder kind of comes out of their socket and this becomes overworked. Then we are stressed. So here in America, where do we hold our stress? It's all right here for some reason. It's in your face, it's in your back, it's in your neck, and then we kind of end up with these caved in chest, shoulders in our ears, constantly having to tell ourselves to relax. And so in boxing, kickboxing, sometimes what you'll see is you'll have some shoulder injuries. And one easy thing that you can do to help remedy that is to massage these guys out.
in the front, so the muscles right below your neck, like in the top
so
part of
your
your chest.
pectoral connects into your shoulder. And sometimes people think, oh, it's just my deltoid that's injured, or it's just my rotator cuff. And sometimes it's their latissimus, which is from the back, which connects up into their shoulder.
I've never heard that.
Sometimes my delt's really just killing me.
That's right. Or your trapezius or your pectorals, they all connect into this very complicated joint. But one of the common things that we see, because we're so bent forward all the time in our cars and our desks, is that we see really tight chests. And so if you can massage these guys out and work with the fascia, which is a very thin membrane that helps to keep tissues together, sometimes that gets hardened and calcified. And so if you can massage that and get it to open, then you can alleviate a lot of these types of pains. Same thing with your upper back and your lower back as well.
Good thing is shoulder is my primary line of research. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So-
I just segued right into that. Yeah.
One of the most common injuries to the shoulder
Kru
is
Brooke did.
shoulder impingement. So shoulder impingement is when the structures underneath, so we have this scapula, the shoulder blade, and when the structures underneath that acromion is getting impinged. So one of the most common result of that is because you're using a lot of your upper trapezius. So your upper trapezius is a muscle that attaches here to.
So for our listeners, just like the muscle right below the ears, kind of like
Yeah, so it goes to the base of your skull,
Okay.
and then it goes to the clavicle. And then when they get tight, that's why it goes forward.
why you
and that's
hunch.
why, when you're typing over time. And the reason why you're getting tension headaches is because they attaches to the base of your skull. So if you are using a lot of your upper trapezius, what's going to happen is now that pain is going to radiate up into your head.
Oh my God.
So those are the things
I'm
that we kind of
easily
look
scared.
at. Yeah, one of the studies we are trying to figure out is how can we avoid that. So we're using electromyography or EMG, which is very similar to EKG technology. So we use sensors, we put it on the muscles. So the main muscles we're looking at are the upper trapezius and the lower trapezius. So the lower trapezius is more here at the bottom of your scapula. And we want that to work more because it's going to pull your shoulders back and in. So we look at different exercises. We use that by feedback. They look at a screen and they do very simple exercises. We call it IWTY for lack of terms.
So give us some of those simple exercises.
You're going to be like
gonna
here,
do
like
it.
a letter I, and then you're going to pull your shoulders back, right? So
Oh,
it's
I just
more
heard it
retraction.
crack just
yeah,
now.
so you're getting that retraction. And then we have W would be your like a letter W, and then you're pulling it down, and you're trying. So the goal is they're looking at the screen. They're trying to limit the activation of their upper trapezius, and then T, and then Y. So we do those exercises.
So T is like
T
like-
is more right
like-
here in the start, and then you just open it.
Welcome.
Right.
welcome.
There you go. Welcome.
Or here's
Yep.
stuff on a table.
There you go. Right.
Okay.
Because if you're using a lot of your upper traps, then you're going to be getting the motion from here instead of that lower trapezius. And then the last one is Y.
Why? Like the YMCA.
Yep, there you go.
Dance.
Yeah. mhm.
Close. two out
So,
of 4.
Yeah.
interestingly, we found in this study, and we just published that recently, we found that if you do that exercises and you really concentrate on targeting your lower trapezius, we saw that the scapula, instead of going, because when your scapula is forward, which is we call anteriorly tilted, and that's internally rotated, and then downwardly rotated, it increases the space of the subacromion.
Is that the shoulder? So the
So
shoulder.
the subacromion, is it okay if I
Yeah.
show it? So it's right in here,
Okay.
right?
Glad
So
you
this
went
is the
sleeveless
acromion.
today.
I know.
This worked out.
So this space is really small. It's around 6 to 14 millimeters.
So it's just under the
Yep.
the shoulder part,
Uh-huh.
just under
So
that.
what we want is we want to pull that. That's why a good posture, right, they always say, is pull your shoulders back, right?
My mom would constantly slap my
Yep,
back.
because it increases that subacromial space. And so that's what we saw. If we do those exercise, you kind of move your shoulders a little bit more towards the back so it's externally rotated, and eventually could avoid shoulder impingement. Because eventually if you don't get that shoulder impingement taken care of, it could lead to rotator cuff tears. So really, it's more serious.
So are these small exercises that you just showed us, do those really help people if they're already kind of like, they're hunching a lot, it's kind of already kind of bad, and they've been doing this as a habit their whole life, and they're like in their mid-30s? I'm talking about myself.
Especially if you're always in front of a computer, right?
Yeah.
Over time, you're good at the computer, and then over time, and after like 20 minutes, you go this, and then
Right.
if you
You
take a
start to
break,
hunch.
you just like try to pull your shoulders back, right?
So it's good to like do those little exercises maybe
Yeah.
a couple times a day.
Yeah. It's just to keep reminding yourself that you have to pull your shoulders back, and that's kind of what we found is that keep your shoulders back. There's really a reason why you want to do that. Yeah.
It's not just your mom yelling at you.
No.
Okay.
I find when I have like better posture, like everything just feels better. You can
Yeah,
breathe deeper, and it
yeah.
feels right. But then
No, it is
after a
true,
while,
though.
you're just like,
Yeah, because if you're going to be pulling your shoulders in, it decreases the space where your lungs could move, right? So if you pull your shoulders back, you're increasing your thoracic volume. So now your lungs could really expand bigger. So
Okay.
it's kind of going to be helpful.
Usually, every one of my guests, I like to ask them a certain question, and it's how is your field represented in popular culture? So, I think Brooke, this is an easy one. How's martial arts represented in popular culture? But maybe for you, Jun, I don't think kinesiology is represented in any kind of popular culture. But if it is, I would love to know: is it good? Is it bad? So I'll let you kind of, either one can go first.
Everyone knows what the UFC is.
I don't know.
Everybody knows.
Oh, the Ultimate Fighting.
The Ultimate Fighting,
Okay.
yeah. Dana White, the whole 9 yards, and I think that's kind of the largest representation of martial arts right now, and it's sad. Because that's not what martial arts is. Martial arts is working on your spirit, and martial arts is working on cultivating confidence within yourself and challenging yourself physically, not just trying to throw things harder and faster and getting out there and making money. And unfortunately,
Or trash talking.
And now the science and the art is kind of being thrown into this pool of anybody can do any kind of fighting of any time, and that would be the biggest representation of martial arts right now. And luckily, there are women, because I'm a woman and I do martial arts, who are now in the UFC, which are helping to motivate other women to do martial arts, which I think is great. I think a couple of years ago, Jackie Chan and Jet Li were really big martial artists, after Jean-Claude Van Damme, and kind of those Wing Chun movies and those old Kung Fu movies with the white beard are kind of dying off, unfortunately. And now it's being replaced with this. And so hopefully within our school, we're trying to bring back a modern tradition to martial arts so that it's a little bit more welcoming for everyone. You don't have to have a shaved head and tattoos on your face. You can be a professor at Western, and you could be a butcher or an ex-butcher.
Just like we threw Gina into the octagon with barbed wire fences everywhere.
That's right.
That is not what it's like in
hopefully
our
we can
studio.
represent it a little bit better now
Yeah.
and make it a little bit more welcoming, because anybody can do it with the right training and the right environment.
That's awesome. That's what we try to do with science with this show. We just try to show that anyone can do, or anyone at least can be interested in science, and it's not just for a certain kind of person.
Yeah.
Wait, is that why I'm here?
Yep.
Okay.
Kinesiology. Yeah, it's fairly new. Not too many people know kinesiology, probably. You guys, it's the first time you heard of kinesiology.
True.
I think there's a, right? Yeah. And there's really a big push. And really, kinesiology, you could name it also as exercise science or sports science, because there's different specialization within it. And I could talk about biomechanics since that's my field. And interestingly, I probably don't know that some of our kinesiology majors or exercise science majors, they go work in the motion industry or the motion
Capture
Yeah,
industry?
you did
Like
motion capture. Yeah.
Yeah, in like movies like Gollum and,
Yep.
and Lord of the
So
Rings. Okay.
The technology that they're using are really based from what we do with study of human body, where they put markers on the bony landmarks and they want to see, and as you could see now, like Avatar is a good example, Lord of the Rings, their movement are really precise and accurate, and that's because of the technology that we're using. So it's just a different field. You're not doing any helping increase performance or decreasing injury, so it's more of that in the motion or Hollywood, right? In Hollywood. So I think it's increasing in terms of people knowing more about kinesiology. A lot of people are getting involved with sports, with different martial arts. So they're thinking about how can we decrease this injury? And so they go back into reading some kinesiology books. So it's really helpful in terms of getting exposure to kinesiology, to the field of biomechanics.
That's awesome. I want to thank you both for coming here, and thank you, Jordan, as well, in our standing up, making us look smart.
Yeah, well,
I know.
walking towards it.
Yeah, he looks just huge. But thank you for coming, and thank you for showing us everything.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
welcome.
helping us not be common, for us not to get those common injuries, and that's really helpful for me. Thank
And
you.
me.
And you.
Thanks for having us over.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.